There are now two women who have accused Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct, and Michael Avenatti, the attorney for Stormy Daniels, has come forward alleging that there is a third woman who has credible claims against Brett Kavanaugh as well. So we don't know what those accusations are. Avenatti hasn't released any details about those accusations yet, but it appears that he will be representing this woman. And again, he says that the allegations are credible. Now, with that said, I think an interesting conversation would be the political calculations / miscalculations by Republicans in regard to this story. There has been some polling recently indicating that Republicans are losing support among female voters. And so weird slip. Cenk has more details on that. I don't know where that came from.
I have strong details. I have the best details. Maybe that's where it came from.
Yes, you do have details.
Okay, so before I get to the political calculations here, which are affected by if there is a third woman, Avenatti on Twitter has been talking about this since Sunday night. We're doing the show live here, of course, Monday night. He says his client is no longer a government employee, but that she still holds a security clearance. So that is relevant. It makes you wonder if she worked with Kavanaugh at some point in the Bush administration or when he was a judge. He says that she's had multiple security clearances. Now, there's no way of judging whether that person exists and how credible they are or what any of the details or the allegations are because they're not public yet. Now, Avenatti, as a person, cuts in two different directions. Clearly, he's against Trump, so you can take what he says with some grain of salt. On the other hand, when he has promised big scoops in the past, he has always delivered. There has not been like, hey, I'm gonna do this. Just kidding, I was just trying to get media attention. That has not happened yet. So if he says there's something coming out, it doesn't mean it's gonna be credible, but there probably is going to be something. So that would be a third person. So now as the Republicans look at that, here is the calculation they're making. Okay, if we think we're going to lose the majority in the Senate, then we have to get Kavanaugh through right now. Otherwise, we're not gonna be able to get him through if the Democrats control the Senate after the elections. On the other hand, if we can hold a majority, who cares about Kavanaugh? Let's just get rid of him. Let's get someone else that is not going to inflict political damage on us right before the election, especially with female voters. So that is what they're weighing right now. And how much damage is it gonna do to the Republicans if they keep this national conversation going where they're constantly attacking women who are making serious allegations and saying, oh, they're lying, they're smears, they're this, they're that. So now factor in the poll that Anna mentioned. It came out over the weekend and I was so blown away by the numbers that I did a YouTube live on it. And so the generic congressional elections, Democrats versus Republicans, who do you want to control Congress, was at already an incredibly high 8-point advantage for the Democrats until this poll. This poll now has it at a 12-point advantage.
Whoa.
And there's only 6 weeks left. So tick, 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 tick. Now, the only demographic that the Republicans are still holding is men over the age of 45. They have lost every other demographic. And now, because their lead among men over the age of 45 is strong enough, they're still holding men overall, but now that lead among men is just down to 3 points, which is really bad news for Republicans. They have to hold men at much higher numbers in order to win these elections. Now, how about women? They've always had a disadvantage when it came to women, and to me, when the Democrats and MSNBC always touted, oh, they lost women, I was like, yeah, but they have men. Wait, you're just telling half the story. That doesn't make any sense. So, well, now in this case, I just told you the other half of the equation, men. When it comes to women, the lead that the Democrats have now is no longer big or significant. It is now gigantic. The Democrats now hold a 25-point advantage among women. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do that math. Only a 3-point lead among men, with men and a 25-point deficit among women. And women have been showing up in record numbers in the primaries. And that's just within the party. Okay, wait till you get a load of the general election. Now, the last stat that has got to get Mitch McConnell and his colleagues super nervous, which whether it's the right thing or not the right thing is probably going to affect Kavanaugh's fate more than anything else, is even in Republican districts, their lead among, compared to the Democrats on average for the whole country is down to 1 point. Now, understand that a lot of those Republican districts are super safe. They have 20-point leads, 30-point leads in some of those districts. So if you take all the Republican-held districts on an average, they're down to a 1-point lead against the Democrats. That's not a wave, that's a tsunami. So a Republican pollster said, I have never seen numbers this weak. So as they get together in caucus this week, which is exactly what they're doing, I need you to understand that they're gonna keep it real. That McConnell's gonna talk to those guys. How many of you do you think are gonna lose? Ted, do you think you're gonna lose in Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many, hey, are you going to lose in Missouri? Are we gonna get McCaskill back into the Senate, right? So what do we need to do? I mean, are we gonna go from 25-point deficit with women down to 30 points? Then we're all toast. We might all lose, right? So that's what's happening right now.
I have so many things to say. Okay, so first off, when it comes to Republicans losing support, I do think that the Kavanaugh hearings have a lot to do with it, but also I think Republicans have really underestimated how disastrous Trump's administration has been for their poll numbers, because they've continuously supported him, and it appeared, especially when it came to the election with Mark Sanford. Remember, Mark Sanford was one of the lawmakers who decided to criticize Trump, and he lost the election as a result of that. And I think that there was too much emphasis and too much attention paid to that, where Republicans thought, no, we better fall in line, we better support Trump, because if we do, we're gonna pay the price. But I do think that there were a lot of moderate Republican voters who ended up reluctantly voting for Trump, but then later saw, how disastrous his policies were, like the tax policy. It had very low approval ratings from the get-go, right? Before it even got passed. And Republicans passed it anyway, and they didn't care. They didn't think that they would have to suffer the consequences for that. And I do think that they will. And I think that this Kavanaugh thing, this Kavanaugh story is just another example, or maybe the straw that breaks the camel's back. We'll see. But going back to Ted Cruz, Ted Cruz is in trouble, and I think that Senate Republicans see that. There's a really good chance that Cruz could lose to Beto O'Rourke, and what makes that abundantly clear to me is the way that Cruz tries to attack Beto. He can't attack him based on policies because Beto's policies are popular, so instead he attacks Beto for having nice hair and good teeth. He attacks.
That is literally the weakest attack I have ever seen in politics.
I mean, is it really an attack though? I mean,
like, hey, you know what? You're too good looking. Hey, attack me like that all day long.
Yeah.
Okay, but I guess if you're Ted Cruz, you can't help but think that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now my final thought on this is, look, do I think taking into account Kavanaugh's potential vote on Roe versus Wade, and then that impact on the elections and your electoral chances as a senator is a legitimate way to think about whether you should vote for Kavanaugh? Yes, I do think that. Do I think that taking your electoral chances into account is a legitimate way of deciding Kavanaugh at this point is the right way to go? No, I do not think that. I think that they should make that decision at this point based on whether they think he did or did not do those incredibly serious allegations. So I don't think politics should play into that, because those allegations are either obviously disqualifying if he did do it, or you should go to bat for him and defend him to the hilt if you think for sure that he didn't do it, because that's an unbelievable smear job if you think he didn't do it and you say, I don't care that he got smeared. Like, I'd lose my political career over defending a person that I thought was being smeared. But these are politicians. They're not like you and I, right? The only thing they care about is their own seat. So as they look at these events that are unfolding, man, they all have to be super, super nervous about it, because my God, when you have women showing up at the primaries at the record rate that they are, you got a 25-point deficit with women. Now imagine that you rush this confirmation through, and Avenatti's right, and there's a third person, and they're credible. Now you got women wondering, my God, what the hell has Kavanaugh been doing all his life? Then you got the story we didn't even do because we thought it was not to the level of these other stories about how he needed a certain look for women who were applying, et cetera. I don't want to get into too much of those details, but when you put all of that into consideration, and then you go, yeah, all these horrible, horrible charges, we don't care, women. The only thing we care about is that he's going to vote against Roe versus Wade. I mean, you might have awoken a giant that you're not going to know what to do with. And so if you wanted record turnout like we've never seen for women voters, that is the exact recipe for that. So if they're not caucusing right now to be incredibly careful about their political chances, they ought to be, because they might be walking into something that they literally have never seen before in their political lives. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.